Good evening and welcome at Belvedere 21. Tonight, a very special event is taking place here at Belvedere 21. Blickle Cinema, Feminist Futures Forever, is dedicated to feminist art practices. It is about shifting perspectives in art history, in exhibition history, and it is about narratives that need to be told and heard, and it's about histories and also futures to be written. It takes its point of departure in the highly influential exhibition Kunst mit Eigen-Sinn, translated art with a mind of its own, that was presented 40 years ago in 1985 at the so-called 20er House, the today Belvedere 21. Much more than just looking back, Feminist Futures Forever will interconnect past, present, and future. And the ORLAN Her Story project, that is, as I mentioned, an integral part of the exhibition, is capturing the voices of leading feminist artists who are part of Kunst mit Eigen-Sinn, who are still active today and who will also be part of Feminist Futures Forever. They agreed on sharing their thoughts, experiences, their works, but also their struggles and fights, and not least the strategies they developed in over time in countering a world that was and still is, unfortunately, dominated by patriarchal structures. Or tonight's event is taking place in the context of this sharing of knowledge and sharing art practices in the past and also in the present. And a very special welcome goes to Rose English and ORLAN, who are with us tonight. And before we get the insight into the detailed program, we will start with an artwork by Martha Rosler. It's a short film that she produced in 2006 entitled Prototype, God Bless America.
God bless America!
Martha Rosler, as Louise already said, sends her warmest regards, and despite everyone's efforts, and really including hers, she couldn't make it tonight, but she will try and come early next year. So with that, with her regards, I read a couple of lines that Martha herself wrote about this particular work, so we felt like she can have a little voice tonight as well. So I quote Martha: "I found this dancing doll in a shop of Chinese-made goods in my neighborhood, standing next to a plastic Godzilla. At first, I rejected it, and then I had to have it. Vaguely understood how the dancing action was accomplished, and I rolled up the pants leg to check. I was right. The leg was like a prosthetic limb, one of the two defining injuries of the US war in Iraq and Afghanistan is traumatic limb amputation, generally of the leg as a result of the roadside bombs. I had already made a 3-meter-high swinging prosthetic leg, prototype, freedom is not free, to signify this injury. The dancing doll gave me the chance to point to that injury in miniature. I find changes in scale to be useful in reframing an issue. Another interesting element was the oddly incorrect uniform and helmet of the doll, and its unrepresentatively Asian features. It was America in some other nation's imagination. So, with the scaling and the rescaling and the continuation of art production, I leave Martha's quote, but would just add that you can see that feminist art production is something genuine political, and it refers always to a cultural political context and lived reality, but be it in America, France, England, or Austria. And this adds, so to speak, to the complexity of what is subsumed under the term feminism that always falls short.
Thank you, Stefanie Reisinger, for these words by Martha Rosler. It is nice to see so many of you all interested in feminist art production and feminist art practices. So tonight we continue with these programs around feminist art production, feminist art practices, feminist curating. And I will tell you a little bit about the history. So this exhibition took place in 1985. It was on the initiative of Valley Export, who is here tonight. Valley Export, a courageous feminist artist. Without you, this would have not been possible that we are here today. Also present is here Silvia Eibelmeier, the curator of Kunst mit Eigen-Sinn, the co-curator with Valley Export. And when you read this list of artists who participated in the Kunst mit Eigen-Sinn exhibition 40 years ago, it becomes very clear that many of the artists are still active and productive, and they started with this production in the 1960s. This means 60 years ago of ongoing feminist art production. And our question for tonight, for also programming this evening was, what keeps them going? What keeps you going? Why were feminist art practices important then? And why are they probably even more important now? And in the curatorial team of this show, we are fully convinced that feminism affects everyone, not only those who define themselves as women. So tonight we have invited, as you heard from Louisa Zeyer, two internationally well-known artists, ORLAN from Paris, Bienvenue à Wien, and Rose English from the UK. So this oral her story project was developed in close collaboration with filmmaker and artist Christiana Berschon, whom I also saw in the audience. Christiana developed with us a concept, we work very close together, and the aim of this project is to document the voices of the artists who participated in Kunst mit Eigen-Sinn in 1985, who are still active today, and will also be presented in our upcoming show, Feminist Futures Forever. So tonight's program, what awaits you? We saw the video prototype, God Bless America by Martha Rosler. We will show you excerpts from ORLAN's early performance series, Mesurages.
Mesure.
And afterwards, Rose English's quadrille. The Mesurage, I have to give you some information. You will see one short video from the performance, from the action ORLAN did in 1977 at the Centre Pompidou. And we also prepared a clip from a Mesurage ORLAN did at the Andy Warhol Museum in 2012. ORLAN started with these performances in the Vatican in 1974, and ORLAN continues to perform these mesurages until today. And then you will see Rose English's Quadrille. This was a film filmed on Super 8 millimeter, but in the meantime it was digitally transferred. It was a performance that took place in 1975, and it was filmed by Rose English's brother Simon English.
Even though we sort of thought about a couple of keywords and ideas and strategies that we want to speak with both Rose and Alain about tonight, they also meant to show the distinction of their practices. Before I dig into the first sort of keyword, I would like to invite the two of you to speak very briefly, just give an introduction about each of the works or the documentation of works that we just saw. So to really start with your individual practice, and then we continue with like more specific questions.
The credits of the film will have revealed that it was a performance that was a site-specific performance made for a location that most people would have been coming to that location to see a competition with horses. And I managed to persuade the organizers to give me permission to present the performance in the intermission between one set of competitions and another. So the context was a horse show, but what we presented, myself and the dancers, was a very different equestrian spectacle. It had quite a long genesis because I'd made the horse hoof shoes and tails over a long period of time, and each set of shoes and each tail and the little tunics were made specifically to fit that dancer because it was very treacherous and demanding to walk in those shoes. They were also, all of them, performers who were used to being on point because they had some ballet training. And there was this exploration going on in the performance between the training of horses for dressage and equestrian display and the training of dancers.
Je voudrais vraiment encore vraiment souligner combien je trouve fantastique.
I first want to thank you, Valley Export, who could reunite and bring together 180 artists in 1985. And it's sad that 40 years after that, we still need to be feminists. It's a horrible thing, and I didn't think at the time that it would be necessary to be feminists, but there are more and more violent men today, and there are women who are influencers on TikTok or even other internet streams, and who question all the things we have been fighting for to overcome these difficult times and our difficult conditions to be free. There are women who are speaking, who want slavery. They want slavery back, the slavery of household, sex slavery, and I'm really very, very sad about that. I've been fighting all my life.
En ce qui concerne les mesurages, c'est une performance que j'ai faite pratiquement toute ma vie.
Mesurage is a performance I've been making all my life. And you can see that we don't have a body, but we have bodies. Because if you see in the video the difference between the body I had in the Centre Georges Pompidou, it was a different body, and my body changed completely. If you look at the body in Pittsburgh, it was rather difficult for me to make this performance because I had a problem at the knee. And, well, the doctors told me not to do the performance. I did it all the same.
Et ces mesurages, effectivement, Je voudrais encore les faire, mais...
So I have been doing this measuring performance all my life, and I will go on doing it, but as you see, in some time it won't be possible to do it. Why did I do this? Well, Protagoras said the man is the measure of all and everything, and I think that women are the measure of all. That's what I wanted to show. And I made this performance in the streets who have names of very important men, of stars, and I wanted to measure myself in reflection and in comparison to those very important men, streets like street Victor Hugo, Lamartine, and I wanted to know how many unities of my body, of my ORLAN body, are measured to express the name of Victor Hugo. So this was a way to question these men and their glory. And the second place I made these performances in was in museums. I made these performances like, let's say, like an animal who marks its territory, because normally museums are about artists, but there are very many female artists who are forgotten, and that's why I made these performances.
Thank you very much. And I actually, on that note, I have a follow-up question for Rose. You, Rose, have had situations where you used your voice as well, rather than with Quadrille. Obviously, it has been also shot in Super L8, so there is also that technical situation where there is no sound with it. But later on, you went on to do more improvised solo presentations where you self took the stage. You self had, of course, an idea what you needed for the performance, but it wasn't scripted. Your presence and your interaction with the audience created the script that could later be reperformed. And I would like to hear from you that sort of taking presence on a stage, also bringing your own voice into it, was something that shifted over time?
Okay, but before I do, I'm just going to use something else, which is to interject in the style of ORLAN, who I have enjoyed hearing her treatise. And I would like to follow and take that as an example to address two things that I was really struck by when I heard her pronouncements before the two excerpts of her Mesurage that we just witnessed. In the first one, she spoke about the fact that she felt an intense joy when she was performing the piece, that she had a sense of being above herself and looking down. And then between the two presentations, she also gave an impression of rage, of extreme rage, which continued into a sense of her in the second performance or iteration of the work. And I'm very intrigued by this combination of joy and rage, and I sort of recognize it to an extent. A big impulse of my work has been the pursuit of joy and pleasure, and particularly about the pleasure of thinking and thought, and how it might be possible to engender a sense and an equilibrium for thinking with an audience by acknowledging their presence and by them agreeing to be a witness to what you're doing. And that, for me, to return to one of your questions, Stephanie, was that the discovery of the audience and their willingness at times to listen to what I had to say was an incredible encouragement to learn how to speak. And through speaking in improvised performances, I became more and more interested in knowing what I was going to say the next time. And that led to me becoming a writer and writing scripts, a bit like plays, although they weren't really plays. And so language entered my work and has remained a big part of my work ever since.
when you say writing has entered, it also moved, and I wanted to get a bit to that situation where in the 80s you did a feature film together with a group of artists, Sally Potter among them, and then Jackie Lindsay. And you have partly written that script, but it really ventured from a performative into yet another medium, which is what was feature film, but that also meant to enter a stage of collaboration with other very strong female artists, collaborators, who have their idea, their voice, their understanding, and their practice. And then you had I think, only women team for production, but as well for the production and the filming. And I would like to hear about that sort of network and the collaboration, and also what happened with the film afterwards, because I find that a very important information at that time.
Okay. Let me think about that one. It's really great to hear you speak about this film. It's also a very particular work, and what's perhaps pertinent about it in the terms of bringing it up tonight at this event is it was screened in this space during Kunst mit Eigen-Sinn. And that was not very long after it was released. It was released, I believe, in 1983. And I guess it was Rabine Valley who programmed it, because I believe she programmed the film program. It was a black and white movie. It was a very ambitious work. It was filmed on 35mm, and it was filmed in London and Iceland, and was exploring the role of the female star and the circulation of the image of the movie star in relation to also the circulation of money and capital through the world and the history of cinema. So it was a little over-ambitious, but we were very keen to go ahead and make it. And as Stephanie was explaining, we decided that it was also an opportunity to enable women to become members of the film unions. At the time, you couldn't work in cinema, commercial cinema anyway, unless you had a union card. You couldn't get a union card unless you'd worked in commercial cinema. So it was a sort of a prevention of women being able to work in their technical capacities in cinema. So we employed an all-woman crew, and everybody was paid the same, including Julie Christie, the film star who played the film star in the film.
Yeah, one might say, well, a program to put Rose English and ORLAN together is curious, interesting, and we think so too. And there is obviously also some topics you share. Rose just was speaking about this, the joy in raging, or the joy in performance. But there is also something that you both do in your methodology, in your practice, is to use the archive. And also archiving in the sense of a feminist practice, like taking care of something, also preserving one's own ideas and history. So ORLAN, for example, has an incredible website. It contains your whole body of work. And Rose has a different way of using the archive, but you also have a very meticulously preserved archive with the props, the objects from performances, documentations of your performances, and you also use the archive to rearrange, reassemble performances. We would be interested in what role plays the archive for you.
Moi, je dois dire que le corps est obsolète. Il ne fait plus face à la situation.
I just wanted to say, I have an old body and my body is obsolete. It's not ready anymore to assume some situations. If you ask me something, my memory is not good anymore. So we have artificial intelligence. Of course, I have a certain critical distance to artificial intelligence because it can cause damage, but we can collect things thanks to artificial intelligence and things that are otherwise going to be lost. So I created a robot which answers questions better than me. If you ask me what I have done 40 years ago in this or that exhibition, I don't know it. My robot knows it. And it's better than me. It answers if you ask a question, it will answer in all languages. And, well, I have a hologram also. So memory is something very important. Why? Because we need to remember the past in order to create future. And I'm rather deceived and very sad about the actual political situation in Europe. I feel that we are going to lose Europe thanks to Trump, thanks to Mr. Putin. This is from outside, but also we are under attack also from the inside. People who deconstruct Europe. And that is why I think we need memory. We need to remember the past in order to create the future.
Yes, I certainly agree with that. Memory is a very important thing, and one of my favorite books is by Frances Yates called The Art of Memory, and in it she traces the Renaissance tradition of the memory theatre, in which memories are recalled by thinking of spatial architectures within which particular memories are stored. And I think there's also a particularly interesting phenomenon of being able to remember text in a performance situation. For instance, a classical actor might have to remember many, many hours of text, and they have to construct, in a way, mnemonics to help them find those words in time and space. I'm talking about physiological memory here, and ORLAN is mentioning the use of AI or her robot self to remember, which I think is a wonderful invention. And I would certainly enjoy checking it out myself on her website if it's available.
Rose, yes. It is, a very interesting way also to look upon AI. And also, we also were thinking of pop culture elements in both of your works. Probably we will even be part of one pop culture element later on. But I want to also look into the audience. If you would like to address Rose English or ORLAN with a question or a comment or remark.
I do have a special question about the video, Quadrille, from Rose English. Was it by purpose that you don't have a sound on the video, or was it technically not possible?
I'm not au fait enough anymore about film technique, but it was not possible to have a magnetic track on a Super 8 film. We would have had to have recorded it on a reel-to-reel. And didn't do that. There was sound in the performance. There was sound which came over the crackly little PA public address system in the sports arena. So it was a piece of Baroque classical music by Boccherini, and it hovered in space through the heat of the afternoon. And you could hear, of course, other sounds of the Southampton show happening, the announcement for different competitions in adjacent spaces. But it felt wrong to put a soundtrack on what was, in effect, not sync sound. So I left it silent. But there was sound, of course.
Thank you each and all for your work. If we're talking about feminisms, then my first question is always which ones? And I wonder with each of you, specifically in terms of your practices, what your feminism is. And I think maybe a good way to describe that is what it aims towards, what the goal is of your feminism, the dream that it's dreaming of the world we don't have, for example.
D'abord, j'aimerais bien savoir quelle est votre définition, vous, du féminisme?
First, I have to ask, what is your definition of feminism? Feminism, there are many feminisms, they are different, women are different, men are different, but as long as we have a contribution, all feminisms are good for me. We collaborate in order to touch women, to get in contact with women, and to get in contact also with men. There was a time when men had not the right to participate in feministic meetings, for example. I'm a feminist, but I like men, but not each and every man, of course. Men who don't hurt, who don't violate, who don't assassinate. Do we have such men in the room? Yes, we fight. We feminists, we fight to achieve little, small things in everyday life and big and great things. We work in order to abolish slavery, household slavery and sex slavery. So maybe my feminism is very different from your feminism, but as long as it is feminist, it's not important.
What is your feminism?
Ja, gute Frage. I think I'm not interested in defining what is and is not feminism, but rather the personal compass. And so for me, my compass aims towards access to resources for all humans to be treated as humanly as every other human is treated.
Le problème, c'est que c'est pas le cas.
The problem is that it's not like it is.
I think we've thoroughly explored that particular question. I feel it would be really appropriate to acknowledge Martha's work in this evening. I know that she's not present, but I know that you are wishing to draw some sort of similarity between these three very, very different bodies of work. And I think that the thing that I can see links those very different bodies of work made at different times and for completely different reasons is the idea of limbs. But obviously in Martha's film, the amputee's leg is being evoked. In relation to mesurage, there are the limbs being stretched out through the space to measure the rage inside the institution. And in quadrille, there are the limbs of the dancers representing or portraying the trammeled limbs of the trained horse. So that's just my little link between those three bodies of work. I was also very struck by the shimmering in the trumpet mouth at the very beginning of Prototype, the way when she cut from each section, you'd see a little shimmer in the trumpet's mouth before it started tooting its chilling and poignant tune.
I would like to thank you. Merci beaucoup, ORLAN. Thank you very much, Rose English. We have prepared a surprise. We are still doing together collective exercise, and ORLAN will conduct us through. You will be the conductor.
Alors, merci beaucoup pour cette merveilleuse surprise. Vraiment. Merci.
Thank you very much for this surprise.
Alors, ce que vous allez entendre, en fait, je ne suis pas du tout quelqu'un qui a... C'est la première fois que j'ai travaillé avec la musique.
It's the first time I'm working with music.
En fait, je travaille toujours sur des phénomènes de société que j'interroge.
Normally, I work with phenomena in society and I question these phenomena.
Et j'ai voulu, en fait, après la distanciation physique due au Covid, j'ai voulu rapprocher les corps.
So we had so much distance during COVID, so I wanted to get the bodies nearer to each other.
D'autant plus que je me suis aperçu que mes jeunes assistants n'avaient jamais dansé le slow. Je me suis dit, il faut faire quelque chose pour les jeunes, on ne peut pas les laisser comme ça.
And I got aware of the fact that my young assistants never danced a slow. And I told myself I had to do something for the youth.
Alors, j'ai écrit des paroles qui sont très importantes pour moi. Désolé, vous n'allez pas les comprendre.
I have written words. I'm very sorry, you are not going to understand them.
Et j'ai choisi des musiciens et des musiciennes à qui j'ai demandé de me composer à partir de ces paroles un slow torride, sensuel.
And I asked two musicians to write music for me, something very slow and very sensual.
Et bien sûr, elles ont chanté et moi j'ai introduit ma voix dans chacun des slows.
So they were singing, women were singing, and I came with my voice.
Je te veux du bien, je t'absorbe. Ça accélère, ça accélère, ça accélère, ça accélère.
Que j'observe.
Mon clitoris sourit à tous tes mouvements.
L'attente tes bras.
Ne t'arrête pas. Le désir est là.
Ne t'arrête pas.
J'aime ta cuisse entre mes cuisses. Tes mains sur ma taille. Tes mains sur mon cul. Ça accélère, ça accélère, ça accélère. Les particules.
Fantastique, corps à corps.
Viens.
Danse avec moi.
Je suis homosexuel. Envoie-moi au ciel. Je ne sais pas, je ne sais plus si je suis. Je ne sais plus si je suis polyamoureux, si je suis homosexuel, scorpiosexuel. Puis-je homosexuel? Si je suis pansexuel, je suis slowsexuel, je suis arsexuel.
Danse avec moi.
Je suis toute à la fois, je suis tout.
Fantastique, corps
Je suis tout le monde. Je suis hors.
danse avec moi.
J'aime tout dans ce langoureux corps à corps.
Voluptueux.
Que c'est bon. Un corps que l'on aime. Un corps qui veut du bien, deux corps qui veulent bien.
All the body, please. You need to feel have the warm body on your body. It's really extraordinaire. You need. Je suis slow sexuel. Je suis slow sexuel. Comme. On the stage! On the stage! Je suis slow-sexuel! Nous sommes slow-sexuels! 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 Merci.